Hello all and welcome to today's show. First, be sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. You don't want to miss what we're about to talk about. Following Garrison Brown's untimely death, a moving and surprising action has been taken by Maddie Brown Brush. Sister Wives star Maddie has made efforts to reconnect with Robin Brown's children, even though there's been emotional distance built up over the years. Robin has isolated her 5 children from the rest of the family, even taking them out of a holiday group chat, which further widened the rift. Why then is Maddie reaching out now? Since the outbreak of the pandemic in 2020, Cody Brown indicated that he was living only with Robin and her children. He alienated his 3 other wives, Christine, Mary and Janelle, and their 13 children, usually blaming them for being irresponsible or unsafe. Sister Wives fans picked up on his favoritism, particularly how he could not stop calling Robin his obedient wife. That preferential treatment had a price. Cody's bad relations with his other children created a great rift that broke the family apart. Once all 3 of his original wives departed, only Cody and Robin were left. Robin's 5 children grew more and more detached from the rest of the Brown family, even though they had spent years together as a family. But things took a turn at Garrison Brown's funeral in Wyoming. The entire family came together to honor his memory. In a powerful moment, Maddie sat down with her sibling, Logan Brown, Mary's child, and opened up. She expressed her frustrations with her father, choosing to refer to him as Cody rather than Dad. Still, she acknowledged that while she couldn't control his actions, she could choose how she responded. Maddie admitted feeling sad not only about her dad, but also for Robin's children. She indicated she would like to speak with them and delivered a sincere message. "I have nothing against you. I'd even apologize if I've ever harmed you." Her honesty and expression of remorse was an unusual act of reconciliation in a broken family. It's obvious Maddie desires to rebuild bridges burned by others. She realizes Robin's kids are still her siblings, and she doesn't want bitterness or estrangement to define their future. The show has been spending some time recently grieving the death of Garrison Brown, tragically who suicided in March 2024. Even through their grieving, the family was physically separated. While the majority remained united at the funeral, Robin and her children hung back with Cody, reflecting the emotional distance still present. Other Brown children welcomed Robin's children enthusiastically as they arrived, providing a faint glimmer of hope that healing might be a possibility. Many viewers, though, have blamed Robin for estranging her children for years. They think she controls all their lives, phone time to personal relationships, and that this has resulted in her children feeling like strangers to their siblings. Meanwhile, certain fans feel that Maddie and Logan are employing the show as a venue to reconnect, perhaps hoping that their public overtures may translate into real-life healing behind the scenes. It begs the question, can moments on television result in real reconciliation? Adding another emotional touch, there was a subdued but remarkable moment from Janelle Brown at the funeral. Although she had a history with Cody and they ended up breaking up, she showed him respect in a manner that surprised most viewers. Her dignity and respectfulness in such a sorrowful moment revealed a different side of Janelle that few anticipated, and it made a lasting impression. So what exactly did she do, and what did it mean? That's something we'll explore in our next segment. Be sure to subscribe and stay tuned, because there's still so much more to uncover about the Brown family's journey. The last 3 episodes of Sister Wives, however, have been dedicated to the celebration of Garrison Brown, who died suddenly in March 2024. These episodes took the viewers close to the struggles of Garrison, when he started, what led to his agony, and the heartbreaking consequences of his suicide. The series also spotlighted the trauma his family faced upon learning about his death, offering fans a rare, unfiltered glimpse into bereavement. When the time came to bury Garrison, Cody Brown decided to have his son buried in Wyoming, at the Brown family ranch, where his parents are also buried. Flanked by his son and son-in-law, Cody was physically able to dig the grave. It was a moment of both symbolism and grief. It was Janelle Brown, Cody, Robin, and Robin's 5 children who followed Garrison on his last trip. Janelle had the urn with Garrison's ashes in her possession. While Cody was meant to put the urn into the grave, Janelle tenderly handed him the urn, stating that it just made sense. She had given their child to Cody when she gave birth to him, and now she was returning him in death. It was a circle of life moment, a silent but emotional one for 2 mourning parents who had raised a son in common and now bid him farewell. One of the viewers commented that Janelle's employment of symbolic language was particularly profound. Instead of sugarcoating the truth, she opted to communicate with honesty and significance. Allowing Cody to dig the grave wasn't simply a pragmatic activity, it was symbolic. She understood how much Garrison had yearned for Cody's affection, although it arrived too late. The fact that Cody and Garrison were estranged during his passing made the scenario more excruciating. Most fans were surprised and touched by Janelle's courage and dignity. In giving Cody the urn, she appeared to put aside old resentments, at least for an instant. It was her gesture of closing a door, of paying tribute to their son as a family. Some in the audience interpreted this as an almost symbolic act. The 2 of them had created Garrison together, and now, together, they were putting him to rest. Not everyone perceived it the same. To some, the symbolism cut even deeper. They perceived it as highlighting the bitter truth that Cody, with his absence and emotional detachment, might have hurt Garrison the most. These viewers thought that Janelle, being always there and supportive, ought to have been the one to put him into the ground. They maintained that unless one has known the piling pressure of parental rejection, abandonment, and stoic suffering, they cannot fully understand what Garrison had to endure. Nevertheless, even with Cody's flaws and emotional unavailability, some viewers sympathized with him. They recognized the pain of child loss and granted him mercy, just as Janelle did. They knew that in mourning, judgment succumbs to mercy, and even the most shattered of relationships might merit a glimmer of kindness. Perhaps in the quiet after Garrison's passing, some bridges long believed to have been torched are starting to mend. A female who spent much of her life living in the midst of this messy, extremely publicized family has set out to mend aged wounds. Acting on subtle grief and an eagerness for making amends, she is attempting to open doors closed years ago. Her name will be familiar to anyone who keeps up with the Browns, but her motive marks something different. She's not only seeking to connect, she's on a mission to revive the emotional bonds that once completed their family. And though grief lingers in every room, she's moving forward with courage, determined to discover healing where there was once only silence. A long time ago, a world health scare swept across the globe and did not leave a single home untouched. For one special and multifaceted family, it destroyed what was left of the tenuous connections that had held them together. In the midst of this dissolution was a man, a father and husband to several, a man whose position as head of a large plural family started to change. Gradually but surely, his attention became focused. His presence, time and energy became focused on one home, one woman and her children. It was a gradual change, but undeniable. The laughter which used to resound in communal living rooms disappeared. Chatty dinners, birthday celebrations with dozens of voices, and random sibling moments gave way to invisible barriers and emptiness. There was one wife who stood fast, holding strong to her husband's rules and decisions. Even when others spoke out, challenged the limitations, and started making their own decisions, she did not falter. To some, her devotion appeared as strength. To others, it appeared as distance. Her home remained close-knit, but at what expense? Her kids, who were once a part of a huge family collective, started to disappear from the group picture. Group messaging that used to see constant holiday talks and life news turned quiet. Plans stopped getting sent. or were politely turned down. The one-time close network of parents and siblings fell apart, and the estrangement deepened with the years. But there was one daughter who couldn't release what they had. She had lived in that hectic, sometimes crazy, but intensely connected world. Now she was a mother too, with children of her own, but she bore those formative memories with her. Memories of love, laughter, and a home full of siblings. The shock of losing her brother, a good, intelligent man whose life was cut too short, tore something open in her. In that naked sadness, all the resentment of her past melted away, leaving only honesty. She wanted her family, all of them. At Garrison's funeral, the emotional chasm was laid bare. Under a grey sky on the remote plains of Wyoming, the mourners had come together. Those who had opted to put some distance between themselves and the family patriarch stood on one side. Those who were close, tied by loyalty, proximity, and habit, stood on the other. The divide wasn't merely emotional, it was palpable. Yet something changed. In the midst of sorrow and years of pent-up tension, there were tentative, whispered interactions between siblings who hadn't seen each other in decades. And then, beyond the official ceremony, something amazing occurred. A sibling who had largely avoided the limelight approached her sister, the one who had long since left the family house to forge her own path. Their dialogue wasn't scripted or tightened for television. It was real, unvarnished, tearful, but also hopeful. With tears, she didn't merely express condolences. She opened. She poured not merely pain of recent loss, but of years of silence, confusion, and questioning if the family she had known was still there through all the layers of hurt. And then, surprising herself as much as anyone else, she made a wish, plain, exposed, and genuine. She wished to sit with her father's other children, the children she hadn't heard from in so long, and tell them, "I don't hold resentment, and if I've ever hurt you, knowingly or not, I'm sorry. Please forgive me." It wasn't a show speech. It was a cry from a place where she had begun to heal. Her dad remained complicated, formed through years of unrealized expectations, differences, and emotional space. But in her heart, she made one thing unequivocal. Regardless of the past, regardless of the distance, Robin's kids were still her siblings. Time and distance had not taken that away. And in spite of it all, love had survived, quiet, persistent, and waiting. Though fleeting, the moment was heavy with possibility. Maybe her sadness had worn down her guard, or perhaps motherhood had imparted some valuable lesson about forgiveness, about do-overs, and the abiding force of love without condition. Whatever the motive, she finally understood. There was no need to allow adults' mistakes deny her the ability to be a sister. For years, the audiences of this family's TV odyssey have wondered about the barriers around one very specific household. Many think that the mother of that house was a gatekeeper, holding between her children and everyone else. True to the patriarch's rigid rules, she maintained an emotional and physical divide. She is accused by critics of influencing so strongly that her children had no actual freedom, and rumours circulated louder that contact with outsiders, even family, was forbidden or controlled. Some claim extending beyond her orbit was considered disloyal, forbidden. Even so, these are speculations, constructed in comment strings and debated over internet forums, from brief views on a highly edited show. The reality, though, is much more human. Pain exists on all sides. That mother may have behaved out of fear, loyalty, or a passionate conviction that she was defending her children. The family who had once embraced her had, with time, come to symbolize tension rather than unity. But something shifted, something tiny but powerful, on a blustery day in a silent cemetery. There, in the center of the nation, sorrow burst open long-frozen emotions. Red eyes, shaking voices, and sore hearts coexisted. And for the first time in a long time, a nod, a wave, even an embrace, went between people who once thought the other unapproachable. It wasn't flawless, it didn't repair everything, but it was something, and that something counted. From that day on, a woman who had remained quiet for too long started to move towards healing. She isn't hoping for miracles. She realizes not every sibling will react. Not every chat will be okay. What was done can't be changed, and not everything that can be recalled can be fixed. But she's opting for courage, not comfort. She's opting to extend an olive branch, despite the fear, despite history, in hopes that healing can commence, even in the smallest measure. This isn't about apologizing for all that has occurred. It's about reclaiming what family means. It's about introducing her own children to cousins, to their story being part of something greater than only pain, that their roots run to joy as well. That family can be complicated, yet still worth holding. She wants to be able to share stories of holidays past, laughter shared, and memories that transcend the years of separation. In the weeks following the funeral, there were glimpses, tender, quiet changes, a social media message posted by more than a single side, a group photo that encompassed everybody, a message even if never replied to. They can appear minor to the outside world, but to a people who have shared this complicated past, they're seismic. These are the early movements of a woman who won't allow the tale to end quietly. Those outside look in and quickly judge, placing blame, taking sides. Within the family, however, it's never that easy. Each message, each gesture conveys some combination of love, hurt, confusion, and memory. This sister, the one now speaking up, isn't claiming to know it all. She only gives herself honest, vulnerable, in the moment. In a family where the emotional scars run deep, that energy is strong. She wishes for her children to be raised with the understanding that their heritage isn't tragedy alone, that families, trees, grow apart but stay grounded together, that uncles and aunts are more than words, that cousins can be greater than law, they can be best friends. She's not doing this trip for applause. She doesn't require admiration. Rather, she's talking less, listening more, and stepping aside for others to join when they are ready. She recalls most of all the quiet boy whom they lost, and she believes in her heart that he would have demanded peace. The brave sister is extending in his name and in the promise of a united future, not because it is simple, but because it is right. A woman who had once existed in spiritual union with a man she no longer refers to as her partner made a choice that shocked many. Amidst the time of grief and emotional turmoil, she did not respond out of duty, convention, or common history. Her decision arose from a deeper source, an awareness of overwhelming loss, the vulnerability of healing, and the irreversible finality of death. By the side of an empty cemetery, something irreplaceable in her arms, she stood before the man who had once been her life partner. In her arms wasn't merely an urn, it was a container filled with years of recollections. Some happy, most hurting, times shared, times lost. It contained their boy, now deceased, and all that he had been to both of them. She handed the urn to the man she'd left, not because she'd forgotten the way he'd hurt her, but because she still remembered who he was supposed to be. Because even though everything that had come apart between them, they'd created a child together. And in that last moment, she decided to hold to that connection. As the years went by, the television program that documented their lives kept stripping away the layers of a broken family. The young man they had reared with so much expectation was raised in a house of unrealized dreams and emotional estrangement. His personal pain had not been heeded, but it devoured him. And when at last he was quiet, his death rang out with all that had been avoided, dismissed, or denied. During the days after his death, the family made arrangements for a simple farewell. His place of rest would not be where he had stayed, but where their ancestors now rested, a land that had once been full of dreams of oneness and prosperous tomorrows. It was a land they once envisioned having children together, side by side, in community harmony. That dream had ended a long time ago, but the ground retained meaning. And in spite of all that, she permitted him, her former lover, to take their son to it. It wasn't a funeral, it was a pilgrimage, a return to the start. A symbolic journey back to what was and what might have been. Outside, people questioned her choice. Why give this man, so frequently implicated in paternal inadequacy, the decency of closure? Why show grace when so much time had been lost to obstinacy, pride, and emotional abandonment? Outsiders did not know what she knew. She did not see a tyrant, but a broken father. She did not see the rigidity, but the sorrow behind it. The walls he had erected, she saw the anguish behind them. She saw a man who was breaking under the burden of what could never be undone, not only mourning his son, but mourning the years that he could never get back. The last ceremony started as they arrived at that holy soil, among the open heavens and the memories of their ancestors. He, the man previously driven by a need for control, now sat quiet and humble beside the grave he had assisted in digging. Words could not come. The moment required more than words. And so she went ahead. Taking the urn as though cradling their son for the last time, she handed it gently to him. It wasn't a scene for the cameras, it wasn't performative, it was an offering of grace. She gave him not forgiveness, but comprehension. As she placed the urn in his hands, she gave him a responsibility that echoed their start. Just as she had formally welcomed their son into life and handed him over to his father's arms, now she left him to put their boy back into the earth. It was a circle, serious and whole, not because their marriage had healed, far from it, but because motherhood had led her to this last, brave act. In subsequent interviews, she shared that this was not an impulsive action. It was planned, symbolic, poetic in its grief. She had always known that her son had longed for a deeper bond with his father, a bond that had never really existed. She bore the guilt of seeing that chasm widen and the weight of knowing that it could never be repaired. Yet she knew, although it was too late to rewrite the past, it was not too late to offer his father one last opportunity to do something worthwhile. Whispers circulated around town. Some opined that she should have saved the last act for herself, that she, who had been so strong, present, and unshakable, should be the one to bury him, that the man who had lost so much should not be given this closure. Others perceived something else. They noticed dignity, the courage it requires to overcome bitterness. They noticed a woman not losing herself to the past, but reshaping it. She could have clung to pain, but she instead gave meaning, not hatred. Although loss had not been shared equally, it had ultimately been shared. The father was unable to verbalize his grief, but his remorse was apparent. No reflection or regret could restore what had been lost, but in giving him that place in his son's final act, the mother recognized his part in the narrative. She did not rewrite the script. She respected the journey, the imperfect, agonizing, and authentic path they had walked as parents. Her action resonated deep with all of us who were watching, because it showed something that is universally true: the quiet power of grace. The ability to observe a person for their humanity, and not only their failings, and the realization that sometimes grief can be enough to unsharpen what rage hardened, to let the gentle echoes of a love that once was shine through. Thanks for watching. If this video touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt musings, real-life experiences, and day-to-day insights. Until the next one. Love.